Hello, everybody. This is Menopause Taylor bringing you the state of menopause in the world today. And I am here to give you another lesson on options for managing your menopause. I try to help you tailor everything to manage your menopause your way. In the last broadcast, I've given you tutorials really on vitamins, minerals, and dietary supplements that you can use to alleviate various symptoms of your menopause. And now it's time to do the same thing with herbs. You know, many of you prefer to use herbal remedies for one aspect or another of your menopause management. And the thing you need to know is which herbs help with which symptoms of menopause. And no single herb suffices for all the symptoms of menopause, and none of the herbs is capable of preventing any of the diseases associated with menopause. And the other thing you need to know is that there are risks associated with various herbs. You've heard me say many times that there is nothing without risk, and herbs are no different. So if you want to use herbs, you have to know which herbs are for which symptoms and what their risks and side effects are. So that's what I'm going to cover for you today. And later on, long time from now, I'll be covering things by symptom, individual symptoms. And when I do that, I'll give you every option for managing every symptom, including the herbs. But for purposes of this podcast, instead of delivering this information symptom by symptom, I'm going to organize it herb by herb, or as they say in Australia, herb by herb. So I'll present each herb and tell you which symptoms it will help. And I'll just present them in alphabetical order for simplicity. So we start with A, which is aloe vera. Aloe vera helps with only one symptom of menopause. That is joint pain. And you'll find aloe vera in many different forms, lotions, gels, capsules. Just remember A for arthritis. Okay, B, black cohosh. Black cohosh is one of the most ancient, popular, and multi-purpose herbs. It actually helps with a lot of menopausal symptoms, including hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, mood swings, irritability, depression, unwanted hair growth, and vaginal dryness. See, that's more than is typical for herbs. Most herbs only take care of one or two things, but there are a few things that can get worse with black cohosh. Black cohosh can make you gain weight, and it can give you headaches or make your headaches worse. And some women have side effects of nausea, vomiting, or breast pain when they use black cohosh. But the biggest risk of using black cohosh is that it can lower your blood pressure, sometimes significantly. And remember, you don't get any literature on risks when you get herbs. See, it's not a requirement of that industry. So just know that there are some side effects with some of these. Okay, next for C. C, California poppy. California poppy is good for your moods, mood swings, irritability, depression. And you can remember that by just thinking of California hippies who are happy all the time. High, but happy. And with C, we also have cayenne. Cayenne helps with one thing, decreased sex drive. You see, that's typical of herbs. Most have only one benefit. So cayenne can help boost your sex drive. And another C is a long name. Chai Hu Long Gu Muli Wong. Complicated name. With a name like that, you would think it would serve to improve a whole bunch of symptoms, but that is not true. It only works for three things: insomnia, mood swings, and irritability. And we're going to stick with the C's here for a minute. Chasteberry is next. If you recall, I have talked to you about chasteberry before because chasteberry is progesterone. And that means chasteberry is going to help the symptoms that are related in some way to progesterone. Well, which symptoms are those? Well, the first one is your periods. You know that your menstrual cycle results from an interaction between estrogen and progesterone. And you know that perimenopause is due to low progesterone. I've taught you these things already in previous podcasts. So this is why I tell you to listen to these in order. And it's why I tell people who watch my videos to watch the videos in order, do everything in order. They build on one another. And so you also know that progesterone is the hormone of pregnancy. It's the baby's hormone. It isn't there for you. Your hormone is estrogen. So chasteberry is going to do some of the same things that progesterone does, which means it will help with the following. It'll help regulate your periods. It'll make you drowsy. So it might help alleviate insomnia a little bit, but it's usually more of a sluggish drowsy. It will decrease your sex drive. It'll possibly decrease headaches. It'll decrease your risk for uterine cancer, but it may cause depression and it may cause vaginal dryness. So if you think about it, when you're pregnant, you experience most of those things. You're drowsy, your sex drive is lower, you might have fewer headaches, and you might be a bit depressed, and your vagina may be dry. You see, the word chasteberry comes from the fact that monks use it to curb their sex drives. It makes you chaste. Now, in contrast to chasteberry, we have cubeb. And cubeb is a mild form of testosterone. So it can improve your sex drive. It's just the opposite of chasteberry. See how these things work. And another herb that is closely related to cubeb is something that starts with a D, Damiana. And Damiana increases your sex drive also. Now, it's just a bit stronger than cubeb. And it can also help alleviate hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, and fatigue. Why? Because it's testosterone. And testosterone loss, just like estrogen loss, causes these symptoms. If you ask any man who has had anti-hormonal treatment for prostate cancer, he has these symptoms. And then the next herb is dong quai. Now, dong quai is fairly popular, but it's only useful for one single symptom of menopause, which is vaginal dryness. And it has the side effect of thinning your blood, which few people realize. Going on to ease, another popular herb is evening primrose. It can help with mood swings, irritability, depression, breast pain, and incontinence. Are you starting to see how you have to know which herbs are good for which symptoms? And are you starting to see that none of these herbs is magic? I mean, most of them are not going to do anything close to erasing your symptoms. They'll just decrease their severity. Okay, that brings us to F. That's feverfew. Feverfew decreases pain. It helps reduce your joint pain and your headache pain. And then G is for ginkgo biloba. Ginkgo is all about your brain. It's good for your brain in the short term and in the long term. In the short term, it decreases your forgetfulness. It makes your brain less foggy. A lot of women talk about menofog. But it can also help you reduce your risk for Alzheimer's disease. That's the long-term brain benefit. Now, it's not going to do what estrogen can do for your brain, but it certainly benefits your brain. And there's another G, Gotu kola, which is closely related to ginkgo. But Gotu kola only benefits your brain in the short term. It helps reduce your forgetfulness. It does not help prevent Alzheimer's. So this is a very important distinction. For H, we have hawthorn. In my opinion, hawthorn is one of the most important herbs. And that's because it can help reduce your risk for a heart attack. That's its only benefit, but it's such a big one. Why? Because heart attacks are the biggest killers of postmenopausal women. Heart attacks kill 1 out of every 2 women. So if you're an Earth Mother and you haven't been watching my videos or you haven't been listening to the podcasts on all this other stuff, you're missing some of these huge concepts that really matter. Please, please, don't get trapped into learning about only one option category. Learn about them all, and then you can still use whatever you want to manage your menopause. And we have another H. It's hops. I've talked about hops before. As with all herbal estrogens, the strength of estrogen in hops is very weak. You learn that hops is one of the few herbs that actually contains estrogen. But even though the strength of estrogen in hops is low, it can help with certain symptoms, specifically insomnia. And it may even reduce your risk for a heart attack a tiny, tiny bit. But again, not nearly as much as estrogen does. And the risk of hops is that it contains estrogen. So if you shouldn't take estrogen, you shouldn't use hops. We don't have any I's, but we do have a J, joyful change. Joyful change is good for helping to reduce hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, and vaginal dryness. It's harder to find though. And we do have a K, kava kava. It's got one benefit. It helps reduce insomnia, but not as well as valerian, which we're going to get to in a little bit. We have an L, which is licorice root. Now, licorice root comes in a bunch of different forms: root, bark, herb, capsules, tincture, all sorts of things. But unfortunately, it's not very popular. But it should be. See, you need to get familiar with licorice root. Licorice root is one of the very few herbs that has significant long-term benefits. Not only does it help reduce fatigue, it also helps reduce your risk for breast cancer, uterine cancer, and ovarian cancer. But as with many herbs, there is a risk with licorice root. It causes high blood pressure. You see, nothing is without risk, not even herbs. What I don't understand is why some of these herbs are really popular, even though they don't do much. And then there's something like licorice root, which does a bunch of really important things, but most women haven't heard of it. And another thing that baffles me is that most herbs only help with symptoms of menopause, just the symptoms. But here's one that actually helps prevent some diseases. And yet, most women focus more on the herbs for hot flashes. You see, aren't you glad you're listening to this podcast? Aren't you glad that you're a student of Menopause Taylor University? Next, we get to M. M is motherwort. Motherwort is odd. Notice that it contains the word mother. Well, that's because it was traditionally given to new mothers to treat conditions related to childbirth. Now, I don't know how it flowed over into the menopause category, but you'll find women using it for menstrual irregularity as well as for nervousness, insomnia, heart palpitations. Use for menopausal symptoms is unfounded, but it actually has no health hazards. Let's see, we have no N's, no O's, but we have a P, passion flower. Passion flower helps with insomnia. That's it. That's it. But it's in a lot of menopausal remedies that contain bunches of herbs. Red clover is another herb that contains estrogen. So like hops, you need to be aware that it is a very weak estrogen. Now, red clover is not very popular for menopause, which is odd, given the fact that it actually contains estrogen. You would think that the herbs that actually contain estrogen would be the most popular, but they aren't. But like most phytoestrogens, it's so weak that it, in a way, has really no specific benefits. But you will see it as an ingredient in a lot of the combination herbal formulations for menopause. And you'll find those kinds of things everywhere. They have names like menopause formula, menopause, plain menopause, femstat, all kinds of names that have to do with menopause and feminine things and estrogen. You'll find all kinds of words that mimic these real words. Now let's see, we're at R, how about S? St. John's wort. St. John's wort is the most popular herb for mood issues. Women use it for mood swings, irritability, and depression. I have it in many forms in my cabinet. It's to show my viewers on menopause, and when people want to use it, it comes in the herb, the root, capsules, tinctures, powders. It's in very widespread